Welcome to Amplifying Recruitment. In this episode, I'm joined by Chris Peace. Chris has recently sold his business, Peace Recruitment, and he shares what he put in place, the vision that he had, and the actual actions that he took with his team to make that possible. Now, whether you're looking to exit your business or whether you're just looking to scale and improve your business in 2025, you're going to find this really useful. Cool. Chris, welcome to Amplifying Recruitment. How you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a good start to 2025. Would you, for anyone that doesn't know you, give us a short, sort of brief intro to you and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Chris Peace, formerly of Peace Recruitment Group up in Scotland. We specialise in construction and engineering and stuff like that. I've done 20 years in recruitment, previously with Hayes for about 4 years before I set up on my own, and then launched the business in the recession and took it to 24 staff and just under 10 million turnover, and recently done an MBO. So that's the recruitment potted history, and now I'm doing some coaching and advisory services to various sectors in the UK.
Cool. Okay, so we'll come back to the coaching bit in a minute. The MBO, and I'm sure there'll be people that are listening to this that have heard you talk about this recently. Obviously, like a big thing. To finally, and actually not many businesses get to that point, do they, where they're able to exit. Will you just talk us through like some of that and how you did it and the highs and the lows, and like how did it all come about?
Well, I think initially I just made up recruitment as I went along on my own, and then sort of built the business, and then I got to about 8 years in and I realised that I didn't know what I didn't know, basically. And so I pulled in a coach and a company to come and work with me. And then we started playing this game, even though I was kind of young at that time. I was maybe just in my mid to late 30s. And we thought, well, we'll build a business that you could sell one day. And I said, I'm still enjoying it. I love it. I'm still young. And what am I going to do? I can't retire. And we just played this game that, we would build a business that maybe could sell one day, which kind of took the pressure off. But we tried to put the foundations in. And so, 8 years ago, we started playing this game that maybe one day I would. And then the question that was asked of me was, well, let's start with the end in mind. How much would you need to retire? When do you want that to be? How long do you want to be doing this job for? So at that point, I sort of plucked it out of thin air and said, right, well, when I'm 45, which was last September, I'm looking for X number for me to be happy with and then for me to be comfortable. And my team would need to look like this, and this is the kind of house I want to live in, and this is the lifestyle I want to have. So there was the personal objectives and professional objectives, and we were going to take the building blocks over that time to get to that stage. So there was a sort of vision board and a sort of conversation about what it was going to look like and what success would feel like and what I'd need to have in place to achieve that objective. And so we just daily repetitions worked towards that, getting to where that goal was. And then we achieved it a month before my birthday, basically. But there was many building blocks that went over that kind of 6 to 8 year period when I really started thinking about it. So where would you like to start?
And I suppose the first thing that jumped out for me there was like, how much does that change? Because we can, and I love that thing of start with the end in mind. It's a Stephen Covey thing, right? Start with the end in mind, know where we're trying to get to. But I'd imagine there's some shifts in. Or I don't know, I'm imagining, you tell me, were there some shifts in the number, in the vision, in what you wanted at the end? Or did that remain?
No, I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to hitting my goals and to making sure I'm sort of not letting myself down and letting the team down and stuff. There was shifts in there, because if you think about the timescale, obviously we had COVID slap bang in the middle, and then you chuck in Brexit, some wars, political unrest, cost of living crisis, you name it. There was obviously hurdles in there that had to be jumped, but there was various sort of stepping stones. But no, I didn't really move the goal. I did think that maybe I would have to probably move the 45 to 47, and even then it wasn't about retirement or sale. I started communicating with the team very early. I mean, back in the day when we had whiteboards before technology got really good, I had a birthday cake, a picture of a birthday cake with 45 on it. And so those that have been with me a long time will remember that I communicated very early on that I won't be here every single day. Now, I didn't know if that was going to mean that I was going to golf more and go to the gym more and have more flexibility rather than like grafting 50, 60 hours a week and constantly present. But it was something that I said to the team early, like when I turn 45, the business will look different and I won't be as present. But I wasn't hell-bent on me not being in 100% of the time, which is now the case, because I've resigned as a director. The business has been sold to the management team, and I still have a minority stake in the organisation, so I can still see the management accounts, and I get involved in the board meetings, and obviously collect a little dividend every now and then and stuff. So I'm still I've got a wee pinky toe in rather than a full foot in, to make sure that my baby's still looked after, but it's in good hands with the management team, and I wouldn't have handed it over if it wasn't going to be.
You've just reminded me of something. I remember a couple of years ago, you saying, I've told the management team that I've booked 365 days holiday next year, and so they're not to rely on me. And that feels like a bit of a game, right? So when does it stop being a game, and did it get like, oh shit, no, we're bang on track here, or maybe like this is serious. This is actually going to happen. Yeah,
I mean, I kept it. In my mind, I sort of reframed it, and the 365-day holiday thing was just a holiday tracker. So I allocated myself 365, and so they were like, everybody could see how many holidays you had, and they were like, "You've given yourself 365 days." I was like, "I'm not going to use them, but just to let you know, I can if I want."
Yeah.
I was like, and I never, but as usual, you never use your holidays, you never take them. But ultimately, if I wanted to do something, I could just book a last minute half day, and so I wanted it to be a mindset switch to be like, look, I might not be here. And then I started asking the team and talking to the team, saying like, what would you do if I wasn't here? I even set up a file in the shared drive saying, what if Chris died? Right? Right? So, and it was like, here's all the passwords, here's the logins, this is who you need to talk to, this is what the steps you would need to do. Now, I don't think I was going to die or anything, but I was trying to get them to be more self-reliant, because there was a while where I was doing a lot of stuff, and they would come to me for every question, from stupid stuff, right? Well, what kind of coffee should we buy or whatever? And I'm like, I don't even really drink that much coffee. Get whatever you want. So I started saying to my management team, what would you do if I wasn't here? What would you do if I wasn't here? So I started to sort of move my language more into a sort of coaching, advisory, mentoring type way. And much to their annoyance, they were like, just tell me the answer. What do you want me to do? And I was like, I was trying to encourage them to be more stand on their own 2 feet. And so eventually they started asking, and if they didn't get the one that I thought was the right answer, I'd say, is there anything else you could think of? Have you thought about solving the problem that way? Or did you think about doing that? And they go, good idea. I think we should do that. And then eventually they'd come in and they would nail it and be like, that's what I think we should do. I'd be like, I agree, let's go. And then eventually, over a period of 2 years or so, when I started changing the language, they stopped coming and asking me. They just went ahead and did it. And they said, oh, I've sorted that. And I'm like, fantastic, that's great. And eventually I was like, I don't really need to be here anymore. And I didn't feel myself I was adding as much value into the business as I initially was, because they were just cracking on. So yeah, it was a faded delegation process and empowerment to the team. And then 6 months before the sale, I was just about to go to Vegas. I pulled the management team into my house and I said, I'll just come in for some Chinese. And they were like, what's going on? And then I said, do you want to buy the business? And they were like, how does that work? And so I explained to them and I passed them information. I said, right, I'm flying to Vegas in the morning. Go away and speak to whoever you need to speak to, take advice, and I'll catch you when I'm back. So it gave them time to sort of marinate and think about what the options were. I told them what my number was, and then we started negotiation, but it was all really streamlined. It was all really streamlined in that process.
And were they, when you said to them, do you want to buy the business, was their initial thing like, oh my gosh, yes? Or was there some trepidation? I'm really keen to understand what their reaction was. Were they surprised, I think, is another question there.
Yeah, I think they were surprised, but they were delighted. I mean, you'd need to ask them exactly how they felt, but and maybe one day they'll be on your podcast talking about what they've done. And because I would like the legacy to pass on. Like, I'd love to be sitting on my deathbed thinking Peace Recruitment's still going and it's passed down the generations. And if they do the same model that I've done, which was no money in for them, they've not have to remortgage their house. We basically, I topped up, made sure we had loads of cash in the business so I could take loads of cash out, and then you get your first million at 10%, leave a float in for them. So I didn't basically tie them up to some massive invoice factoring or finance position, or up to their eyeballs in debt, and then they're paying me out of future profits. And because we've been running for 15 years, the money was there and they knew they could pay me. So, and the quicker they get me paid off, the better. And the quicker they get the extra shares off me, the better, and then they can be in full control. But no, I think they were delighted because it's a free shot for them. So they put no money in, they get to own the business, and they pay me out of future profits from a business that they've helped build. So like it was a free shot. It was easy for them. And so it wasn't like they needed to go away and get ticked up to their eyeballs and remortgage their house to buy me out, because let's be honest, nobody's really got that money anymore. And when I looked at trade sales before that, I felt like we were going to lose our identity. And so handing it over to the team that had helped me build it was a no-brainer. And then I knew that the DNA of Peace Recruitment would remain, and the clients would enjoy that, because you see so many in every industry, bigger accountancy practices or lawyer practices buying smaller ones, and then it just disappears and the people in there, don't enjoy it. And I wanted continuity for the candidates and the clients and us to continue on the same path that we'd been on. So no, I think they were delighted, and they should be.
Yeah.
Because there's no risk.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal opportunity. And there's a couple of things you said there that I find really interesting. The bit about like losing the identity and not wanting a trade sale and to be consumed into a big corporate, if you like. Like how important was that? Because I've heard the polar opposite from someone, well, not maybe the polar opposite, but I heard someone else say who had just sold tail end of last year, similar sort of time frame to you actually. I heard them say, I don't give a shit what they do with it. Like once I've got my money, I'm done. I'm off. And you're very, very different to that.
Yeah, I never ever think about money. It's never been a motivation for me. I've never ever given a shit about it. I always put about trying to put good input in, good energy, control the energy in the office, in your conversations, with your friendships, with your partner. Try and just give good stuff in, and eventually good stuff will come back out. And so, the trade sale probably would have given me more money. Yeah. And to be honest, an EOT would have probably meant sure I didn't have a massive tax bill, which is due this time next year. But it doesn't work out right for them. And I just think, no, I don't know, something bigger at play that I believe that I think if you just put good karma out there and you look after people and you treat them with respect and you communicate clearly, even if it's something difficult you want to talk about, you put it out there. So, no, I mean, it wasn't like that. It's I wanted, it was a legacy. I don't know, something romantic, or maybe I'm a midlife crisis or something like that. That I'm like, I want to leave a message. I want to do something. I want to know that I've achieved something. But no, it was never about money, and it never is. Not now, and not then, and not even when I was on a desk. I just thought, well, if I just speak to candidates well and clients well and put a graft in, the fees will look after themselves. Because you can smell it when somebody wants a sale, and you can smell it when somebody's greedy, and it just becomes a negotiation. And I think maybe to my own detriment, not pushing that as my main agenda maybe cost me some money, but ultimately in the end, I think you'll win longer term. So that was my thinking, but maybe I'm like overly romantic about it or whatever, but it was fair as well. Plus, if I had done a trade sale, the management team and the key players within Peace Recruitment over a period of time would have probably went, we're just going to go, we'll do it ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't need this big venture capitalist, larger organisation to swallow us up, change the brand, tell them what to do. So I think they probably would have left. And that wouldn't have been good. There's no point for anybody. So, and I want the team that have taken it over and the next layer underneath them, I want them to get generational wealth out of it. Because if in 10 years they're able to do the same thing as me, split between the 33% that each of them own, or eventually will own, then that's great. Yeah. And Lewis and Wishy and Alison in particular, they might 10 years time going, I'm mortgage free, I've created this lifestyle I want. And not that I'm expecting them to buy me a watch or anything, but it'll be nice to sit down with a coffee when they've done that and go, we fucking did it. That's cool, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And them to think we're passing it on to the next one. So yeah, I think that was what I was thinking. And that's what I hope happens, but we'll see.
Excellent. Okay. And you also said right at the beginning, you said I've still got a bit of a toe in, right? So what does that look like? Is that complex? Is it confusing? Is it complicated that you're kind of but sold the business?
Well, because I've resigned as a director, I'm not really allowed to be involved. I'm not allowed to direct in any way. I'm a shareholder. So it's just like ultimately going to buying shares with Apple. What's the difference? I didn't start Apple, but I did start Peace Recruitment. So there's an opportunity for me to support externally them as individuals, but I don't have any direct control of what happens within the organisation. But I own 12.5%, and because of the way that the shareholders agreement and such, like post MBO, there's terms in there that give me peace of mind. If they don't make payments for a period of time, then there's clauses that give me peace of mind and reduce my risk to make sure that my asset remains, and I get access to management accounts and final accounts and stuff, so I can see where the money's going and stuff. Because if all of a sudden they decide to start paying themselves 200 grand's worth of pension contributions, then I'm like, where's my dividend? So there's clauses in there that give me peace of mind. So there was a conscious decision for me to be involved and fade my way out over the next period of time.
Cool. Okay. And just going back to something that you said earlier, and you mentioned like asking different questions and getting them to think for themselves, like coaching, I suppose, if you like. Do you want to tell us more about that? Because I suppose the key bit, if you're gonna go through an MBO, one of the things you absolutely have to have is a solid management team, right? So how did you develop that?
Well, there was the behind the scenes subliminal sort of reframing of the language I was using, and then empowering them. So I started getting the team to sort of start presenting their own figures. I gave them more control of their own P&Ls. I let them make more hiring decisions and make their own mistakes, and know that I was there as a safety net of sorts to sort of keep them right or get them back on track if they needed it. And then eventually I had them present more towards the AGM and the team meetings. And I actively maybe chose to start taking a sidestep, from situations and allow them to deal with it. But one of the key things for me was the coach that coached me. I brought her back in to then coach the next level of management. So they'd heard me using the terminology and the playbooks and the tactics that we'd used to build the business the way we had. So they'd heard me doing it, but they'd never been trained on it apart from me, which was secondhand. So I brought in the coach, and she sat with them and said, right, this is what I've done with Chris. This is what you've put into the business. And so they started learning it themselves. And so there was like a knowledge transfer and continuity of the way I'd been shown, the way I'd given them it secondhand, and the way it had then been given to them firsthand from the coach. And so they were ready to start going, right, okay, now I know what we're doing here. And then it gave me a chance to delegate different tasks around how we were going to manage the business or the clients or standards and extras, or, the way we were sort of trying to service the clients in different ways. And there's numerous playbooks we've put in place. So that was really important, that sort of knowledge transfer and continuity. What else did we do to try and coach the team? Yeah, just expose them to more stuff. And I was less involved. And so it wasn't like Chris is gone. It was like eventually more and more, my door stopped getting chapped and people would start going to the right source. So yeah, it was a period of time of a slow sort of extension of the leash, for the want of another phrase.
And that is like the words you use there, that's slow and over time and kind of like levels up, and eventually they get to the point where you can take 365 days holiday.
Which I never did. But I kind of, initially I would be in the office early and I would be there late and stuff, but I started being like, right, well, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning and I'm going to come in at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and they maybe wouldn't know where I was sometimes. And so it was a kind of conscious, like, okay, right, fine. I don't encourage anybody who's running a business or is listening to this thinking, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go. The business won't fall apart without you in it. You think it will, and it won't. It's totally fine. And if you got ill overnight, or you all of a sudden had to deal with like a caring situation for a parent or a loved one, you would just drop everything for that loved one. So do it. So if you've got a team right now and you're sitting watching this and thinking, I could never do that, business would fall apart without me, get over yourself. The business will be fine. And you're only a phone call or a Zoom call or a Teams call away. So take that holiday with your family. If you've got a couple of quid in the bank and you're thinking, I really want to go on a safari or want to go to Australia or something, do it. And see how the business is when you come back, and test it. It's like a minimum viable product. Launch it a little bit and see what you get. And actually you might come back and realise that, they've got all their back teeth and they're more confident. And actually now you can be more empowered to live the life you want, not just be handcuffed to the desk and think that if you're not present, your team are thinking that you're not a good leader. So take that month holiday or 2 month holiday at a time that fits within your business schedule and test it. See what it's like.
Do you think if you hadn't made the decision to sell the business, or if that wasn't the goal, do you think you would have, like what you're talking about there, do you think you still would have gone through some of those processes of exposing people and coaching them and getting them to present, taking them to that level? Do you think you would have done that anyway?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, developing and training and coaching and helping is always something that I've wanted to do. And, you've got to keep moving forward. And so I think eventually I would have either put it on them, or they would have forced it upon me, that they would probably have said, look, I need developed, I want more control, I want to grow as a person. So it would have happened by one way or another, I think. But it was a conscious decision. But I think, over time they would have come to me anyway. And said, I want to be more exposed to more stuff. But I started passing them the management accounts, and they had more exposure to the accountants we were dealing with and the numbers and where it was all coming from. But I've always been like that, even with the team meetings. I was like, look, this is our turnover. This is how much profit we've got left at the end of the day. Because I think for a period of time, people thought, we've made £250,000, net profit. And they're thinking, Chris, you must be loaded. You're balling. And then I go, well, actually, no, because this is how much tax you have to pay, and this is how much it costs for your LinkedIn licenses. This is what rent was. This is what that. And they go, holy shit. And they realize that you're like, so like 50 odd % goes out the door on wages and national insurance and healthcare before you switch the lights on. Yeah. And then like 30, 40, 50% of that profit goes out the door on overheads. Yeah. And you go, well, when you take 200 grand or whatever and you half it and then half it again, and then you need to pay tax on that remaining 50, and I've still got to get paid, they're actually like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
So that sort of real transparency about how numbers really work, because I think people think, oh man, we're making so much money or whatever, and it's actually quite often not the case.
Yeah.
So I've always been like that with everybody. I've probably hung my dirty washing out too often, but I'd rather wear my heart on my sleeve. And that was definitely key for, I think, that transparency and openness with the team about the good stuff and the bad stuff helped retain them and helped them realise what was actually going on behind the scenes. And that filtered down into the next level of sort of senior consultants and attrition levels and retaining your team and all that stuff. So I think that was absolutely pivotal, because I think business owners tend to keep some business stuff too much of a secret, or they want it to be like, I'm going to portray this to the team, but actually behind the scenes they're losing cash and not getting paid and all these problems, where I was always like, no, this is how we're doing. And sometimes that's worked out really well, but other times people have taken those learnings and gone, right, I understand this now, I can do it myself. But when that happened, when individuals left the business, I was always like 51% proud and 49% gutted, because you're losing a good team member, because if they can go and set up on their own. But I was always like, I've helped them. And so that was always good.
I think that's an interesting concept, isn't it? And I think you and I spoke about this a few years ago. Lots of people in recruitment, you did it, right? You're working for Hayes, and then at some point you had this moment of, I can do this for myself. And I suppose at Hayes, they've had it so many times, because it's the monster of an organisation that happens all the time to them. Like how did you feel? Like you said, 51% proud. That 49%, I would imagine, is a mix of other emotions with some expletives thrown in.
Yeah.
What do you think the recruitment industry should do? Because there's an argument, I think, that you should have a discussion with those like top billers, those really good people, those people that have got the potential to go and do their own thing, and say to them, look, a natural progression is for you to either buy this business from me, or you're going to go and set up on your own one day. If you're going to do the latter, set up on your own, this is what I'd like that to look like. What are your thoughts on that?
Folk are going to do what they're going to do, and it'd be hypocritical of me, I think, to say that people shouldn't go and set up on their own. They probably should if they can be bothered, if they've got the skills. But careful what you wish for, because it's not for everybody. I think, what will be, will be. That's it. I think sometimes it feels a little bit different as an SME when somebody comes in and they engage with your clients and they get all the LinkedIn connections, and they're taking screenshots on their phone of all the candidates they want to call, or they're downloading Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that so that they've got a database. And everybody does that. I mean, to be honest, you'd be kidding yourself if you don't think they are. And it felt different, and I guess it feels different when you're working with the bigger companies, when you're taking, not that I took anything, hand on heart. I had 11 numbers on my mobile phone, and LinkedIn wasn't a thing when I left Hayes, really. So there was nothing for me to leave with, although plenty of people that did left printed off databases and left out the door and stupidly left them on their desk at their new companies and stuff. So that wasn't me, though. But, people will do that now, but it feels different when you're stealing from the man, the fat cats, the 250, FTSE 250 shareholders of Hayes that have been around and made so much money for so long. It feels different. It feels a bit Robin Hoodish, like, you're robbing from the rich to give to the poor. But it changes now when you're already, you're trying to build something and you've created a life and you're still small. It feels like you're robbing from the poor to give to somebody who's going to set up on their own. So it does feel different to a certain extent, especially if you've known them for a long time and they know your daughter and they know your son, and all of a sudden they're taking a database and they're walking out the door to take 300 grand a year's worth of your net fee income. It does feel slightly different when it's coming out of your own baby's mouth, as opposed to loads of shareholders in London that are making loads of money anyway, and the company are got a shite commission structure, or they're not rewarding with the best commissions or something like that. So it feels different when you've tried to create something, but you just got to let it go as a business owner and be like, crack on. And quite often the people that left, we replaced with somebody better, and you learn about how to deal with these situations as well.
But do you think there should be like conversations had beforehand that, look, if you're going to leave my business, Chris, which I think you're going to do one day, when we run our personality profiling, like you've got all the attributes of a great business owner. So I think one day, whether that's in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you're going to set up your own thing. Mm-hmm. If you get to that point, I hope we could have an honest conversation where you come to me and say, I want to leave, I want to do that thing, I want to do what you've done and build my own mini empire. And we can have a conversation about how you exit this without stealing data, and maybe I support you with that. Or do you think there's a conversation to be had there, or do you think like our industry will never get to that point?
Depends on the individual. It depends on the people you're dealing with, and there's no queerer than folk, right? And so some folk are going to do themselves. I mean, I've had people, blatantly lie to me. I'm moving abroad. I'm moving abroad, and I'm going to set up a new life in a different country. And I was like, all right, okay. And then I was like, oh, cool. Where are you moving to? What's the situation? I'm like, that's weird. I thought you just got a dog and bought a house and stuff like that. And they're like, no, I'm moving to Dubai. And then I literally paid him his commission, and at midnight he launched the website to set up his own company. And I was like, wow. And I'd got totally sort of like sucker punched on that one. I was like, okay. And, I was pretty close with that guy, and I was a bit like, oh, okay. And so you learn from these situations. You try not to let it, the paper cuts of business affect you as an individual. But sometimes they do, especially if you're trying to wear your heart on your sleeve. But I think also the individuals you work for, they maybe think, is he really that nice, or is what he actually like? And he's going to look after himself when it comes to it, so I'm going to get mine. Yeah. And it depends. People are their own past and their own experiences, and their own people that are supporting them give them advice on the way to do things. And so, whatever. You got to be chilled about it, eh?
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. It's just business. You got to try and have fun and be fair and just live for the moment and crack on and put your best foot forward. So I try not to dwell on these things, but I have done in the past. Yeah. But that's what red wine and whiskey's for, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those bad nights, straight home, quick dram or something like that, and then just like that'll help me sleep better, and then get up in the morning and just crack on again, eh?
Yeah.
Nothing else for it.
Okay, so like looping back to what you were saying, you talked about building this structure of management, mm-hmm. and then I think I just took us off a tangent, but I think you started going into talking about the team and developing them, because look, a business that's got phenomenal leaders but a load of underperforming recruiters, that's no good to anyone, right? Mm-hmm. So what are things you did in place to make the business saleable, exitable, if that's even a word? What did you do with the wider team?
Yeah, you want to have an idea of an org chart. So again, starting with the end in mind, if you're thinking, right, we want to be making X amount, say 150 grand per consultant or something, and you're thinking, well, I can get 250 out of them and 200 out of them, you want to position it and think about where you need to add and what desks you want to open. And you need to see a succession plan. You're thinking, right, they could be a future manager, but I need a trainee to help support that level. So yeah, but I suppose to answer the question, one of the key things for the team generally was training and development. If people feel they're stagnating or not getting developed, that was really important. So bringing in external trainers who can bring in a different perspective, I think for me is really important. And as soon as you start cutting your budget on training, you'll be pleased to hear.
Preach.
That's a slippery slope. So I think external trainers who know what they're doing, who get the organisation, who speak the same language, who have been there and done it, I think is really, really important. But similarly, I think as well, you need to coach and develop and train the team, because if people just feel they're just coming into work and they're just doing the same shit every single day, that's got a shelf life. So I don't think something that's not done enough that I try to do more of. If I was listening into phone calls, especially with more junior staff, I'd say, how did you get on with that? And that's a dying breed. It used to happen all the time. And you're like, what did the client say there? How come you didn't do this? Did you ask for referrals there? What did you do here? What did you do there? And actually on the job that second, and then go, right, let's do another one right now. Let's go back on. And so that sort of ad hoc, there and then, coaching, advice, I've heard what you said, let's try and tweak that. I think that's dying, because it's tiring and you need to be listening in. And I think, but that needs to also come from the body of the kirk, and that comes from culture as well. So even the senior consultant who's sitting next to the trainee says, see, when you're doing that next time, try that. And that's when you know you've really nailed your culture and your training, because when everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet. So again, how do you retain and support your team generally, but also the team underneath the level of management? Clarity of purpose, or giving them a North Star. Like I always said to the team, we were trying to go towards 10, 12 million is where we wanted to get to, because I knew my EBITDA would be on that, and then a rough multiplier that I would get, and that would work out well with the number I was looking for. And agency of choice and prioritizing customer service. And everybody knew what we were trying to do. We were going to try to win best large agency, which we did. So at least when people came in and they were brassing the phones or out meeting clients and grafting on the days they just couldn't be arsed, they at least knew that we were all kind of rowing in the same direction. That clarity of purpose, I think as well, being really blunt about it, is people want cash. There's a lot of companies out there that are not transparent, or they're really sneaky about their commission structures. Ours was really plain and simple. $4,000 thresholds, 20%, 25%, 30%, uncapped, paid 50-50 for the months following. That was it. You didn't have to wear like different coloured socks on a Thursday, or grow your desk by 10%, or, you know, after a year your temps would die off and they went into the house pot if you hadn't grown it, and all this sneaky stuff that generally the bigger companies do. So having a really good commission structure allows people time to earn good money. But I think for me, one of the key things was communication, but being genuine and being authentic with everybody in the office, and giving them a little bit of one-to-one time and making them feel that you knew them and they knew you. So there was more of a bond. It made it a little bit stickier. But yeah, leading with empathy as well. And that's something I probably only learned in the last kind of 6 years or so, because I used to be a lot harder. I kind of chilled out a bit probably. And I started realising that you never really know what somebody's got going on behind the scenes. And, you know, they might be breaking up from their partner, or they might have money worries, or they might have health concerns, or God knows. And they might not be telling you, and you're trying to tell them to just make more calls. And they I don't give a shit about phoning more site managers. I'm having a really tough time now. And so having that relationship with them, so they can come to you and you can say, right, okay, I get it. You're having a tough time just now. How do you want to work with this? And so developing them, I think it's communication, authenticity, clarity of purpose, a good commission structure, training and development, and letting them know that they are going forward. Like I used to talk about taking your helicopter up a bit, because people think like day to day they're just trudging. And you go, well, no, let's fly the helicopter a bit. Let's have a look to see where you were when you started. Look at your growth in the last 2 years. I know you think you're not moving forward fast enough, but look where you were before, you know? And so we were very much not a hire and fire organisation. We allowed people to sort of even just wash their face and cover costs for a while at a time if we knew they were one of us. And eventually that paid out. I mean, I could give you 4 or 5 examples of within Peace Recruitment where some of our top salespeople were on pips, or were not performing, or were not at the level, and we supported them through that. In fact, last year's top perm consultant, a year and a bit before, was in like what we called an incubator pod, which we tried to, I suppose you could say it was just closer scrutiny and more micromanagement, but, you know, which it was in sort of, but actually it was more support and more time for people that had been there and done it. So, and she went on to the following year to be our top perm consultant. So I could give you loads of success stories where that stuff that I was talking about has played out, and actually bottom line has made more money for the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen that firsthand in your business. I've also, like, some of the things you're talking about of the, and I'm going to say these wrong, but there's certain phrases you have in your business that is almost cult-like, and I say that in a positive way, that everyone knows that's how, some of that kind of stuff, right? And the thing is, like cult culture, they're very similar, but where you have, like, it's service over sales, and it's people over profit, and all this kind of stuff. And I think you've got a common message there where everyone says the same thing. Mm-hmm. Something else I've seen in your business at consultant level, but I suppose across the whole business, is these, like, themes that you have, where you had, like, a Daft Punk one at one point, like a and there was some other bits, like that was like a Thrive or something.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we tried to have, like, a theme for each year, and post-COVID, so the one after COVID, right after it, I was like, what are we? And I was like, right, we're quietly confident we're going to come out of this even better, because I thought some people would really flop and fail, and people who weren't leading with honesty and empathy and understanding and were listening to their team and what was happening in the wider market, because nobody had a clue. And I thought, look, we just got to care a bit and see what's going on, because people are worried. But I was like, we're quietly confident we're going to come out of this better. And I went, right, what can I do with that? And so I thought, right, quiet. And so I invented the quiet process. I'm going to make sure I get this right. So quiet, and I printed off little things for everybody's board, like quietly confident. And the Q stood for qualify the job, make sure it's a real job. The U stood for understanding what was expected between all parties involved, understanding the role, understanding everything about it. I stood for interviews. Get interview times, make sure there's interviews happening, because if you're having interviews, there's a more chance of you getting a good conversion ratio. E stood for exclusivity. So that was try to win the work exclusive to reduce your competition and have a higher chance of filling it. And T stood for terms and conditions. So get the terms agreed, because if they're not agreed, then there's nothing bounding you legally. And that really struck home with people. And I said, it's got to be in that order as well, because if you don't qualify it properly. So that was one theme we had, and that actually, even now, they still to a certain extent talk about the quiet process, because it's like an easy step-by-step guide, sort of. And then on the back of that, when the market went nuts, you realised that it was the Great Resignation, everybody was moving jobs, people were pissed off with companies, people wanted more money, people wanted hybrid, and it was like this absolutely chaotic situation. And so that's when I came out at our AGM with a Daft Punk helmet on, which I spent 114 quid on, in fairness, but I still use it every now and then. But that was Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which is one of their songs. So I was like, right, quietly confident, it's gone now. We're now really confident, but we need to go harder, better, faster, stronger. Because I knew there was a moment in time where if we started smashing it, we could. And we did 28% year on year that year, and the year before wasn't bad. I think I was even up on our record year, the one before COVID. So yeah, the themes, I think, gave people a little bit, just something to jazz it up a bit and stop recruitment being so shit and boring. And so yeah, I came out of the AGM and Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger was pumping, and I had the helmet on and stuff like that, and folk were just like, trying to make a little bit of fun with it. So, one of my idols, and somebody that I really respect in business ever since I was a pup, was Richard Branson. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He doesn't know how to fly the planes or sail the boats. He doesn't know, how his virgin cola was made. But he's an ambassador for the business, and he's a voice that's out there and stuff. And I thought, I could, if I could be the Aldi version of him, that would be pretty cool, and just sort of be a little bit more out there and try to be that talisman and not take it too seriously and have a bit of fun. So I try to sort of take little snippets and influence from likes of him. And so that's where the themes come in. And those themes continue. But it's difficult to try and think of something that's going to motivate and incentivize, but also move the needle in the direction you want. But there's two really successful ones that worked perfectly for us, and I think encapsulated the moment that the external conditions were in as well.
Yeah, you can have a load of recruitment business owners on LinkedIn now with Daft Punk.
Brilliant. We could all meet up. Yeah,
absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I suppose, look, one of the things that, just as we finish off this like recruiter level piece here, what does I talk about this because it seems to come up with in lots of the conversations that I'm having, is around like tech stack and how much that's changed or continues to change and changing rapidly. What did that look like in the business? What are your thoughts on that? What are you seeing with clients that you're working with now, in terms of optimizing performance of recruiters using technology?
Yeah. Well, I think I'll caveat this by saying that probably even by the time you've edited this and it's gone live, that the information I give will probably be outdated because the market's moving so fast now. So, and I'm not affiliated to any of these companies, but AI and technology in your tech stack is mad. And it's almost like a full-time job. And I think if you've got a reasonable sized team, my advice to anybody would be find somebody in-house who's got a bit of time on their hands and make them your tech ambassador and have them follow the right companies, dummy stuff, trial things, get them to do 2 or 3 demos a month to see what's out there, because you need to embrace it without being absolutely like laser focused on it, because nothing's going to go away from building relationships. People buy from people. Pick up the phone, influence, overcome objectives, beat your competition, all that stuff. Nothing that's never going to go away in recruitment. But if you don't have those core skills, you're not going to work. You're not going to make it in recruitment. And if you're going to be so reliant on tech and stuff like that, then, hopefully that'll just make you more efficient to spend the time doing the creative stuff. So yeah, caveat it by saying I think technology is moving really fast and it'll continue to do so, but you need to embrace it. But I don't think you should be spending your time on that as I did a little bit, doing it myself. My time should be spent more on strategic, asset building, future profit, making it rain and train, which was one of my sayings that I sort of said. That was what I tried to do. So find somebody in the office that, give them a side project and, give them a little bit extra for a year to basically take time out to demo the products and stay on top of it. Put them into your business, but demo it either on a short-term contract or with 1 or 2 licenses, and tell them you want a 30 or a 90-day exit, and trial it, check it out, work on it and see what works and see what moves the dial forward. So that's what I would do. But quite often when it comes to coaching and talking to these things, folk are like, well, just tell me what to fucking do. Just tell me what I need. What's going to move the dial forward?
Yeah. So could we talk a little bit about what you're doing now? So that's all been really insightful about the peace journey, but you're on a new journey now, right? You've got a slightly different business. Just tell us a bit about that.
So basically, the company that I was trained by 8 years ago was Shirlaw's, and I obviously learned their way of doing it, and they've worked with thousands and thousands of companies worldwide. They were one of the biggest coaching companies in the world at one point.
Just recruitment companies or businesses?
Not everything, everybody, from the biggest companies in the world, to SMEs and stuff like that. And so I learned their methodology and way of doing it. So I've basically moved the other side of the desk. So I pay a small amount of money every month to use their IP and to become a Shirlaw's coach, but it's through my own company, Chris Peace Coaching. And so I'm basically taking the playbook that I learned and I'm now passing it out to companies that I'm working with now, which at the moment is within a couple of different sectors, but obviously I've got a certain niche within recruitment where the information I've got still really fresh and I'm still up to speed on all the tech and the way it works and the terminology. I'm not so far out of it. So yeah, I'm going to be working, and I am currently working with a number of clients on a retained basis or pick up, put down, to help them maybe scale their business or solve any problems and put in systems and processes and look at their sales and business development and internal culture and vision and all this sort of stuff. So strategic business coaching, and I'm doing that individually on myself. And I'm also working with, I'm the co-founder with Unbound with Tristan Rushworth and Rich Evans, where we're building a community of people that we're helping free of charge, which gives you access to a portal and things. But also we want 24 elite leaders who really want to scale, grow, achieve massive growth, potentially exit. And we're going to do peer-to-peer networking and coaching and month-to-month. So that's called the Impact Board. So we're going to be like in your corner, doing it with you, doing it for you, shadowing you, business to business sort of stuff, and like business retreats away in Mallorca and stuff like that. So it's like a really sexy group of 24 killers that want to smash out of the park. And for almost the same price as getting me on my own, you're getting 3 coaches that have all got very different backgrounds. So yeah, I'm quite excited for that group thing because I don't like working on my own that much. And then I'm doing my own individual coaching as well.
And Unbound is that purely recruitment?
No. We're working with a real range of background. And that's actually where the magic is that we're going to have 24 people from a range of different backgrounds. And because, theory of crowds, so you put the same people all in recruitment saying the same things, you might not learn as much. But if you chuck in an accountant or you chuck in a trainer or a payroll expert or somebody doing IT or whatever, the idea is that we can all work together and support each other. And actually, because me as an individual or the 3 of us as the Unbound founders, we might not even have the answers. But with 27 of us in a room and working together and all the rest of it, actually, if that energy accumulates, I think some really exciting stuff could be achieved by that. So no, nothing's recruitment specific, but obviously I've got a leaning in that area, and so there might be a few recruiters that want to join the party.
Yeah, I think that I just to emphasise something you said there, because I've had a similar experience of being in the room with 20 other business owners that aren't in the same sector as you. I think the learnings that can be pulled from there of like that's something we do in restaurant ownership. Mm-hmm. Like this is how we look at customer service. I had another guest on the podcast actually talking about this. This is like in SaaS sales. This is how we negotiate and upsell and retain customers. I think there's some great learnings to be had on that. If anyone wants more info on that, what do they do? Either Unbound or working with you. What's the next step? Just
connect with me on LinkedIn and send me an email, or they can go to gounbound.co.uk and stuff like that and have a look at that. But it's literally just launched, that thing, just literally last week. And so if we're doing our marketing and sales approach right, hopefully they'll not be able to miss it.
Yeah.
We'll be popping up in a feed near yours soon. You know what I mean? So that's the idea. But yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn. That's absolutely fine.
Excellent. We'll get the links in the show notes as well, so people can get there directly.
Thank you.
Last question from me, and I asked this to every guest that joins us. What do you think the next 12 months look like for the recruitment industry?
Okay. Well, subject to no more political unrest, wars, cost of living crises, anything major, I think it'll generally for the next 12 months and beyond, I think it'll just be a slow and steady move forward. I think there'll be nothing to write home about. I don't think interest rates will change that much. I think people will just keep plugging on. So that's what I think will happen. I think AI and technology will continue to fire forward. That's where everybody wants their money. And that's, you can see it now on everybody's social feeds. It's all about technology advancements, efficiency, blah, blah, blah. So I think that'll continue to happen. I think due to the draconian rules put in by whichever political party we have in the UK, I think employment will increase with outsourcing. I think more and more businesses will look at overseas for consultants or for their staff to get the marginal gains on their bottom line profit. I think as well, the ego chasing to sort of get to, as I had, I want to have 30 staff, I want to have 12 million. That was just my ego talking. Why was I not just saying, well, I want to have an EBITDA of this because that's what I know my business is worth? I think that'll end. And I think more and more people are aware of the importance of cash. So I think bottom line cash management and looking at profitability, bottom line, rather than chasing those headcount and how many offices I've got and how many staff I have. I think that's going to die a death now. People are going to stop talking about that because nobody cares. I think as well the war on talent will continue. I think if you're listening to this now and you are a top level recruiter, you could still get now a really good job and move companies. And I think now because there's a realization that the really, really talented ones could potentially name their price to a certain extent, as well as there's an opportunity for you if you've got the right gravitas and the right reputation for you to be able to go in and get maybe a small chunk of equity in an existing company. I think there's more open-mindedness to business owners now to say, if they joined us, would we give them 3% of the business? Well, we might do 4%, or we do something. I think if you're sitting here thinking, what am I going to do? I don't want to set up on my own, and I can't get shares in this company, and they won't look after me. I think if you're a top recruiter, you're probably holding a pair of aces in your hand, and you might not even know it. And I think if you're open-minded about looking out there, there's somebody out there who probably might give you equity or give you that pay rise you want or the flexibility you need to work from another part of the world and still fill jobs in that. I think there is still people open-minded to that. So I think that's something that'll probably continue as well into 2025 and beyond.
Brilliant. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate your time.
Cheers.